The fifth part of evolutionary theory is what Darwin clearly saw as his greatest intellectual achievement, the idea of natural selection. This idea was not in fact unique to Darwin. His contemporary, the naturalist Alfred Russel Wallace, came up with it at about the same time. Darwin, however, gets the lion's share of credit because in The Origin he worked out the idea of selection in great detail, gave evidence for it, and explored its many consequences. But natural selection was also part of the evolutionary theory considered most revolutionary in Darwin's time, and it is still unsettling to many. The idea of natural selection is not hard to grasp. If individuals within a species differ genetically from one another, and some of those differences affect an individual's ability to survive and reproduce in its environment, then in the next generation the good genes that lead to higher survival and reproduction will have relatively more copies than the not-so-good genes. Over time, the population will gradually become more and more suited to its environment as helpful mutations arise and spread through the population, while deleterious ones are weeded out. Ultimately, this process produces organisms that are well adapted to their habitats and way of life. The process is remarkably simple. It requires only that individuals of a species vary genetically in their ability to survive and reproduce in their environment. Given this, natural selection and evolution are inevitable. As we shall see, this requirement is met in every species that has ever been examined. And since many traits can affect an individual's adaptation to its environment, its fitness, natural selection can, over eons, sculpt an animal or plant into something that looks designed. Natural selection must also work with the design of an organism as a whole, which is a compromise among different adaptations. Female sea turtles dig their nests on the beach with their flippers, a painful, slow, and clumsy process that exposes their eggs to predators. Having more shovel-like flippers would help them do a better and faster job, but then they couldn't swim as well. A conscientious designer might have given the turtles an extra pair of limbs with retractable shovel-like appendages, but turtles, like all reptiles, are stuck with a developmental plan that limits their limbs to 4. Organisms aren't just at the mercy of the luck of the mutational draw, but are also constrained by their development and evolutionary history. Mutations are changes in traits that already exist. They almost never create brand new features. This means that evolution must build a new species starting with the design of its ancestors. Evolution is like an architect who cannot design a building from scratch, but must build every new structure by adapting a pre-existing building, keeping the structure habitable all the while. This leads to some compromises. We men, for example, would be better off if our testes formed directly outside the body, where the cooler temperature is better for sperm. The testes, however, begin development in the abdomen. When the fetus is 6 or 7 months old, they migrate down into the scrotum through 2 channels called the inguinal canals, removing them from the damaging heat of the rest of the body. Those canals leave weak spots in the body wall that make men prone to inguinal hernias. These hernias are bad. They can obstruct the intestine and sometimes cause death in the years before surgery. No intelligent designer would have given us this torturous testicular journey. We're stuck with it because we inherited our developmental program for making testes from fish-like ancestors, whose gonads developed and remained completely within the abdomen. We begin development with fish-like internal testes, and our testicular descent evolved later as a clumsy add-on. So natural selection does not yield perfection, only improvements over what came before. It produces the fitter, not the fittest. And although selection gives the appearance of design, that design may often be imperfect. Ironically, it is in those imperfections, as we'll see in Chapter 3, that we find important evidence for evolution.